Fear is the oldest ghost in the human mind. It hides behind every hesitation, every excuse, every silent surrender. But what if I told you fear was never your enemy? It was your invitation. An invitation to remember the power you were born with, the power that sleeps beneath doubt, waiting for your command. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Fears are nothing more than a state of mind, and a state of mind can be rewritten. Tonight you will not run from fear, you will study it, master it, and dissolve it, because the man who learns the law that destroys fear becomes untouchable. His voice steadies when others tremble. His vision sharpens when others run blind. And his destiny, no longer controlled by shadows, begins to answer only to him." Every life begins in darkness. The infant does not enter this world through light. It is pulled from the unknown, crying, reaching, trembling. That trembling never truly leaves us. It only changes form. As we grow, it hides behind words like caution, logic, safety. But beneath those masks lies the same trembling fear waiting to be named. Napoleon Hill once said, "If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go out and get busy." But before you move, before you act, you must understand the truth. Fear is not an obstacle. It is an echo of your forgotten potential. Fear arrives whenever you stand at the border of expansion. It is your mind's way of asking, "Are you sure you want to grow?" That voice trembles not because it wants to stop you, but because it senses you are about to evolve. Every great soul, from conquerors to creators, felt fear in the moment before they rose. But they understood something most people never learn. Fear is energy, and energy is neutral. It becomes your enemy only when you run from it. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the thing you fear most: failure, rejection, loss, judgment. Now, instead of pushing it away, walk toward it. Notice how the body reacts. Your heartbeat quickens, your breath shortens, your thoughts scatter. That's not weakness, that's life force awakening. The very pulse that fuels courage begins as the same vibration that fuels fear. The difference is direction. One paralyzes, the other propels. Hill discovered this truth while interviewing the most powerful minds of his time, men who built empires from nothing, who stared bankruptcy and ridicule in the face. He realized that the only common factor separating the successful from the defeated was their relationship with fear. The average man retreats, the leader advances. The average man prays for safety. The leader prays for strength. And strength, like gold, is purified only through fire. There is a sacred law hidden within every fear, the law of transmutation. It states that no emotion can be destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. Fear becomes fuel. Doubt becomes clarity. Pain becomes power. But this alchemy begins only when you stop resisting the feeling. The moment you say, "Let me see you," the monster dissolves. Because fear cannot survive the light of awareness. It thrives in silence, in avoidance, in the corners of your unspoken thoughts. The instant you name it, you reclaim your dominion. Think about this. Every fear you hold has a name, a face, a memory. It was born somewhere, perhaps in failure, perhaps in someone's cruel words, perhaps in a moment you lost something precious. But fear has no future unless you feed it. Every time you replay that memory, every time you speak your limitation aloud, you water the seed of your own prison. The law that destroys fear begins with starvation. Starve it of attention. Starve it of repetition. Starve it of your belief. Fear whispers, "What if?" Faith answers, "Even if." Napoleon Hill believed that the human mind is a broadcasting station. Every thought you dwell on vibrates through your subconscious and returns multiplied. Fear is not just an emotion, it is a frequency. It invites more of its kind. When you think fearful thoughts, you tune yourself to a station that plays only limitation. But the moment you replace that vibration with purpose, faith, and definite action, you change the frequency. The mind begins to broadcast courage. And courage, once activated, does not vanish. It builds momentum. Hill called it the state of definite faith. It means to believe without proof, to act without waiting for evidence. It is in that act that fear begins to crumble, because fear feeds on uncertainty, and certainty is born only through decision. The undecided man is the fearful man. The man who decides, even if he fails, destroys fear in the act of choosing. Let this truth settle. You cannot think your way out of fear. You must act your way through it. The law that destroys fear is not mental comfort, it is mental command. It demands that you walk forward even as your voice shakes, that you speak truth even as doubt screams, that you move even when your knees tremble, because courage is not the absence of fear, it is mastery of fear's energy. Picture a warrior standing before a great storm. The wind howls, the ground trembles, lightning splits the sky. He does not pray for the storm to stop, he prays for the strength to walk through it. That's the difference between those who conquer life and those who remain its prisoners. The conqueror accepts fear as a companion, not a captor. There's a moment, a sacred instant, when you stop asking, "Why am I afraid?" and begin to ask, "What is fear trying to teach me?" That question is transformation, because every fear is a coded message from your higher self, warning you of where you've stopped growing. Fear points to the exact place your destiny is waiting, and until you walk through that gate, your greatness remains locked behind invisible bars. So tonight, as you listen, remember this truth. Fear cannot destroy you unless you agree with it. It has no teeth unless you feed it your belief. You can strip it of power with a single command. I am the master of my mind. Speak it, repeat it, breathe it until your subconscious accepts it as law, because it is law. The moment your mind believes you are in control, fear becomes your servant. And when fear serves you, it becomes vision. It sharpens your instincts, heightens your awareness, and reminds you that you are alive, fully, deeply, dangerously alive. That is the birth of courage. The moment you realize fear was never here to stop you, it was here to wake you up. There is a secret power that the wise have always known, the power to change one emotion into another. It is the hidden law of nature itself. Nothing is ever destroyed, only transformed. Fire becomes light, water becomes steam, pain becomes wisdom, fear becomes strength. This is the law of transmutation, the alchemy of the soul. Napoleon Hill discovered that within every defeat, there lies the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But few ever find it, because fear blinds them from seeing beyond the immediate. Most people experience pain and stop. The masters, however, experience pain and pause. That pause is everything. In that stillness, they look deeper and they ask, "What is this emotion trying to teach me? What can it become if I direct it?" That single question turns weakness into raw power. When fear enters your mind, you have two choices. You can react, feeding it, resisting it, letting it grow, or you can redirect, acknowledging its presence, and then commanding it to serve you. Every great inventor, leader, or visionary has walked through this crucible. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before perfecting the light bulb, but in each failure, he transmuted frustration into curiosity. Andrew Carnegie faced ruthless competition, but he transmuted rivalry into refinement. Napoleon Hill faced years of poverty and ridicule, yet he transmuted rejection into obsession. The key is not escape, it is conversion. Close your eyes and imagine fear as raw energy, a storm swirling inside you. That storm is not your enemy. It is potential waiting for direction. If you let it rage unchecked, it destroys. But if you learn to harness it, it moves mountains. That is the essence of mastery, to take the very force that once controlled you and make it your servant. Hill wrote, "Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater advantage." Notice he didn't say some adversities. He said every, which means there is no exception, no wasted pain, no useless suffering. Even the darkest moment of your life was coated with hidden light. The law never fails. It only waits for your command. Think of fear as heat in its rawest form. When uncontrolled, it burns. But when directed, it forges steel. The strongest minds were not born without fear, they simply learned to aim it. Fear is the energy that pushes the athlete to train, the soldier to fight, the entrepreneur to risk, the artist to create. It is the tension that awakens genius. You are not supposed to kill fear, you are meant to transmute it. And how do you begin? Through awareness. The moment you can observe your fear without judgment, it begins to shift. Awareness is the fire that melts the chains of unconscious reaction. Sit with your fear. Don't run. Don't rationalize. Watch it. Feel where it lives in your body. Maybe it's a tightness in your chest, a trembling in your hands, a knot in your stomach. That sensation is pure energy. Now breathe into it slowly. deeply, as if you were inhaling courage itself. With each breath, say quietly, I command this energy to serve my highest purpose. What you are doing in that instant is ancient alchemy, turning darkness into power, turning reaction into response, turning emotion into evolution. There is a hidden power in calm observation, because fear feeds on resistance. When you resist fear, you give it life. When you observe fear, you strip it of identity. You remind it who the master is, and the mind, once reminded, begins to obey. Napoleon Hill described the subconscious mind as a fertile garden. Whatever you plant there, it grows, whether roses or weeds. When fear arises, it's simply the weeds showing their roots. But the law of transmutation says, do not curse the weeds, use them as compost. Use them to fertilize your next belief, your next bold move. Every ounce of anxiety can be rechanneled into focus. Every tremor of doubt can be forged into determination. Hill's greatest discovery was this: thought is the only real power on earth. It can create or destroy, attract or repel, lift or bury. Every time you think, you broadcast energy, and that energy responds to the frequency of your emotion. When fear controls the frequency, life mirrors fear back to you. But when you consciously transmute fear into faith, life mirrors faith back to you. Faith is not denial, it is direction. It does not say, there is no fear. It says, fear, follow me. It is leadership of the inner world. And once you lead yourself, the outer world must follow. Look back at every moment that once terrified you. The exam you feared, the person you lost, the risk you hesitated to take. You survived all of it, every single one. That means fear has never once fulfilled its promise. It only threatened. It screamed louder than it could ever act. And yet you believed it. You fed it, you obeyed it, until now. Now you see that fear was never the executioner, it was the teacher. It taught you where you were asleep. It revealed the boundaries of your belief. It tested the strength of your faith. And when you learned to direct it, you discovered your hidden power, the power of conscious transformation. Remember this law. Energy follows attention. Whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on fear, it multiplies. If you focus on faith, fear evaporates. The alchemist's secret is focus, not escape. The warrior does not destroy the enemy. He transforms the battlefield. So, the next time fear visits, and it will smile. Welcome it as a reminder that growth is near. Then speak with calm authority. I am the master of this energy. I choose to transform it. The mind listens to the tone of your voice. The subconscious obeys conviction. Speak with certainty, and the universe rearranges itself to match your command. Because once you learn to transmute fear, you no longer need to be fearless. You become something greater, fear-forged, tempered by the very fire that once threatened to consume you. And that is the law of transmutation, the eternal reminder that you are never a victim of emotion, you are the alchemist of it. There comes a point in every man's journey when he must decide who truly rules his mind. Not his fears, not his memories, not the ghosts of failure whispering from yesterday, but himself. The law of conscious command is the moment a man stands before his own mind and declares, you work for me now. Napoleon Hill called the human mind a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. Every second, it sends and receives vibrations. Most people live unaware of this power. They drift like ships without captains, their minds reacting to every wave, every storm, every fleeting opinion. But the masters of destiny are different. They don't drift, they direct. The law of conscious command begins with one revelation. Your mind is not you, it is your instrument. You are the operator, and an operator must command. When Hill interviewed the greatest leaders from Edison to Carnegie, he noticed the same invisible habit, deliberate thought control. They didn't think randomly, they thought intentionally. They didn't let emotions decide. They gave emotions orders. That is the secret that separates the strong from the scattered. Listen closely. Every time you say, I can't, your subconscious accepts it as law. Every time you say, I can, it accepts that too. The subconscious does not argue, it obeys. It is pure power without judgment, like electricity. Whether you use it to light your home or burn it down depends on one thing, your command. Imagine your mind as a throne room, At the center sits the king you, the consciousness. Around you are advisors, thoughts, emotions, impulses. Some scream in panic, others whisper of doubt. Most men abandon the throne, letting these voices rule. But the king remains seated. He listens. He decides. He commands. That is conscious mastery. Hill once wrote, "You have absolute control over but one thing, your thoughts. That is the single domain no man, no government, no circumstance can ever invade." The tragedy is that most people never rule that domain. They build kingdoms outside wealth, fame, followers, but their inner empire is chaos. And chaos inside eventually collapses everything outside. The law of conscious command is the reclamation of that throne. It begins the moment you say, "No more random thinking, no more automatic reactions, no more borrowed beliefs." You take inventory of your inner world like a general inspecting his army. Which thoughts serve you? Which betray you? Which must be retrained? Every thought carries energy, and every energy obeys a commander. When you are unaware, your emotions issue commands in your name. When you are conscious, you issue them. The difference determines destiny. There is a calm power in a man who commands his mind. You can see it in his eyes, they move slower. His speech is measured, his presence grounded. He does not rush, for he is not being chased by his own thoughts. This calm is not weakness, it is control. It is the silence of a storm that answers only to his will. But control is not repression. You cannot silence fear by force, you can only guide it by direction. Conscious command means taking that surge of fear and channeling it toward movement. It means transforming, "What if I fail?" into, "Then I will learn." It means catching yourself mid-thought, redirecting, and repeating until obedience becomes habit. Hill discovered that repetition is the language of the subconscious. You train your inner world the same way you train muscle, through consistency. Every morning you wake, your mind waits for instruction. If you do not give it orders, it reverts to default fear, doubt, hesitation. But if you speak with authority, it listens. The first 10 minutes of your day are sacred. They set the tone for every vibration that follows. Speak to yourself as a commander speaks to his army. I am focused. I am strong. I am in control of my thoughts and emotions. These are not mere affirmations, they are decrees. And your mind, bound by universal law, must obey them. But there is one trap. Emotion without discipline. Many shout affirmations with trembling hearts and wonder why nothing changes. The subconscious does not obey words, it obeys feeling. You must speak your command as if the universe has already bent to your will. Feel the calm certainty in your voice. Let faith fill every syllable. When the emotion aligns with the thought, the command becomes creation. Conscious command is the art of alignment, thought, emotion, action, and word, all vibrating as one. When you say, "I will succeed," and your emotion believes it, your body begins to move toward it. People appear, opportunities align, timing syncs. The universe recognizes coherence and responds to it like metal to a magnet. Remember, chaos repels, order attracts. A scattered mind sends mixed signals, 1 minute asking for courage, the next feeding fear. The universe cannot respond to contradiction. The moment your mind becomes single-minded, the external world must obey. This is not fantasy, it is physics. Hill warned, "Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve." That quote is not poetic, it's procedural. Conceive it consciously, believe it emotionally, and your subconscious will transmute it physically. That is the law. But conscious command requires awareness in real time. The moment you catch a negative thought, stop. Don't judge it. Observe it. Then reissue the order. Replace the vibration instantly. You cannot stop a bird from flying over your head, Hill said, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair. The more you practice, the shorter the delay between fear and direction. Eventually, fear arises, and before it can speak, your higher mind answers. You become unshakable not because fear disappears, but because your authority over it becomes absolute. That is why the masters of power walk with quiet confidence. They are not fearless, they are in command. So the next time your heart begins to race, your mind begins to spiral, and fear starts its familiar whisper, stop and remember, I am the ruler of this kingdom. Speak it aloud. Say it with the certainty of a king reclaiming his crown. I command my mind, I direct my emotions, I create my destiny. And as those words echo through your consciousness, you will feel something shift. A calm strength rising through the storm, the silence of dominion, the birth of mastery. Because once you command your mind, the world must follow. There is a moment in every life when logic reaches its limit, when facts no longer comfort, when proof no longer persuades. It is in that silent edge of uncertainty that faith is born. Not the faith of blind belief, but the faith of definite knowing, the kind that Napoleon Hill called the bridge between thought and creation. The law of definite faith is not a wish whispered into the dark, it is a command spoken from the soul. Faith is the unseen architect behind every empire, invention, and miracle. Long before Edison's light ever burned, it lived as faith in his mind. Long before Carnegie's steel empire rose, it existed as faith in his vision. And long before your destiny becomes visible, it will demand the same, your unwavering belief in what you cannot yet touch. Hill wrote, "Faith is the eternal elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. Without it, thought is a body without breath. With it, thought becomes law. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same mind at the same time. One must bow to the other. Fear waits for evidence. Faith creates it. Fear demands guarantees. Faith demands courage. Fear looks at the world and says, 'Show me, and I'll believe.' Faith looks at the world and says, 'Believe, and I'll show you.' Every soul must choose which master to serve. The law of definite faith begins with one decision to believe before the evidence appears, to act as if the thing you desire already exists in some invisible form, because it does. Every idea you hold with emotion and persistence is a living seed in the unseen. Your faith is the sunlight that draws it toward reality. Faith is not blind, it is visionary. It sees what eyes cannot, it feels what logic cannot measure. The man of faith does not wait for doors to open. He walks forward until the walls themselves move. That movement is the universe bending to conviction. But faith is not built overnight, it is forged. It is hammered through trial, disappointment, and delay. Every unanswered prayer is a weight designed to strengthen the muscle of belief. Most people mistake delay for denial. They quit too soon, not realizing that the law was still arranging the pieces. But those who persist, those who hold faith through silence, they enter a realm few ever reach. There is a sacred confidence that comes when a man learns to stand unshaken in the storm. He no longer prays for ease, he prays for endurance. He no longer asks for signs, he becomes one. Napoleon Hill called this applied faith. It is not passive, it acts. It speaks with authority. It wakes each morning declaring, "Today I align with the unseen forces that shape my destiny." It refuses to wait for perfect conditions because it knows conditions obey conviction. Consider the farmer. He plants a seed into the soil, covers it in darkness, and walks away believing it will grow. He does not dig it up every hour to check. That is faith, not blind ignorance, but intelligent trust in universal law. He knows that nature rewards the consistent. So too must you plant your desires in the soil of faith. Cover them in action. Water them with persistence. And never, never doubt their growth. For the instant you do, you uproot your own creation. Faith is a vibration. When you feel it deeply, you broadcast certainty into the ether, and that certainty draws form to itself. Hill wrote that thought, backed by strong emotion and faith, becomes magnetized. The universe responds not to words, but to frequency. That is why prayers whispered in fear go unanswered, while commands spoken in faith move mountains. Fear asks, faith declares. Fear waits, faith works. Fear doubts, faith decides. The man of definite faith lives as if his word is law, because in truth it is. He understands that divine intelligence aligns itself with the confident heart. His belief is so complete that it bends probability. People call it luck, coincidence, destiny, but the wise know it is the law fulfilling its promise. If fear is darkness, then faith is light. And light does not fight darkness, it simply reveals it. When you begin to live in faith, life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a rhythm. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer worry, you expect. Your thoughts, words, and emotions harmonize into one vibration of certainty. And in that certainty, fear has no place left to hide. Hill said that faith and purpose combined create invincible power. Purpose gives direction, faith gives propulsion. One without the other is imbalance, but together they form the unstoppable current that carries men to greatness. Remember, faith is not something you have, it is something you practice. Every moment of doubt is a training ground. When fear whispers, "What if it doesn't work?" Answer with faith, "What if it does?" When the world says, "Be realistic," answer, "Reality follows belief." Because it does. The mind that believes deeply enough commands reality to rearrange. Tonight, let this truth take root. The strongest power you will ever wield is not money, talent, or influence. It is definite faith. It is the calm knowing that you are guided, protected, and destined. It is the still voice within that says, "All things are working in my favor." You are not waiting for miracles. You are creating them through your certainty. And when faith becomes your default state, fear becomes impossible. This is the law of definite faith, the invisible bridge between imagination and manifestation. And when you walk it without hesitation, you discover what Hill meant when he said, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." There comes a time when faith must become command, when belief must turn into law, when a man must stop asking life for permission and begin declaring his own authority. This is the law of dominion, the recognition that the mind, when aligned with purpose and faith, becomes the governing force of reality itself. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Man's only limitation, within reason, lies in his development and use of his imagination. But imagination alone is not power, it is the blueprint. Dominion is the act of building from that blueprint with absolute conviction. It is the moment when you realize the universe does not move for the hesitant, it moves for the decisive." Look around you. Every skyscraper, every empire, every invention once existed only in a human mind. Thought commanded matter. Vision commanded circumstance. Belief commanded time. The law of dominion is the same force that transforms invisible ideas into visible worlds. But most people never claim it. They wait, they hope, they plead for change instead of declaring it. They forget that every command begins within. The world does not obey your words, it obeys your vibration. You cannot speak power while feeling powerless. You cannot decree abundance while vibrating in lack. Dominion is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the realization that divine intelligence flows through you, not around you. When Hill spoke of the master mind, he wasn't just describing collaboration, he was describing divine partnership. The moment your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize under a single purpose, you become an instrument of cosmic order. Dominion is that harmony made conscious. But let's be clear, dominion is not domination. It is not about controlling others or bending them to your will. It is about commanding yourself so completely that reality cannot help but mirror your order. The one who rules his own mind has no need to rule anyone else. His presence alone alters the room, his calm is leadership, his silence is command. You've seen this before, the man who enters a room and says nothing, yet every eye turns to him. That is dominion, not through force, but through frequency. It is the power of alignment made visible. Fear loses its grip the moment dominion awakens, because fear feeds on confusion. It thrives in minds that question their own authority. The law of dominion ends that debate. It declares, "This is my mind, and I decide what enters it. I choose my focus. I define my reality." When you begin to think this way, life itself begins to organize around you. Opportunities align, people respond differently, obstacles rearrange. You stop chasing outcomes and start attracting them. You stop pleading with fate and start conversing with it. Napoleon Hill called this the power of definiteness. The world, he said, steps aside for the man who knows where he is going, but the man who doubts his path invites resistance. Dominion is the antidote to doubt. It is certainty made flesh. Let's bring this into practice. Each morning, before the world touches you, before your phone lights up, before the noise of the day begins, sit in silence for 3 minutes. Close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and say quietly but with full belief, "I am the ruler of my mind. I am the creator of my reality. I walk with divine authority." Say it until you feel the vibration shift. until your breath deepens, your shoulders straighten, and your energy settles into calm command. You will know when it happens because peace will replace doubt. Power never screams, it hums. The law of dominion means walking through life as if you are the cause, not the effect. It means meeting circumstances not with reaction but with direction. If a challenge appears, you don't say, "Why me?" You say, "What in me must rise to meet this?" That is dominion, the refusal to be ruled by external chaos. Hill often spoke of the subconscious mind as the connecting link between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence. Dominion activates that connection. When you issue a clear command from a place of certainty, infinite intelligence responds. The universe listens to clarity. It cannot disobey definiteness. That is why indecision is deadly. It sends mixed orders to a perfect system. The man of dominion is precise. He speaks with purpose. He moves with intention. He does not waste words, time, or energy. Every step he takes reinforces his command. But dominion is also humility, the humility of knowing that true power is borrowed from the source. You are not claiming ownership of the universe. You are aligning with its laws. When your will mirrors divine will, creation obeys effortlessly. Dominion is not ego, it is synchronization. There is a quiet majesty in a soul who walks this path. He no longer needs validation, applause, or understanding. He knows who he is and what he commands. His faith is so definite, his energy so consistent, that even fear grows silent in his presence. You can feel that same energy when you read Hill's words. Beneath every principle, every law, every story of persistence, there is a vibration, calm authority. Hill never begged the universe for success. He understood that success was law-bound. You do not plead with gravity. You align with it. So too with wealth, courage, and peace. Dominion is alignment with the highest frequency of creation. It is the voice that says, "I and my faith are one." And when that voice speaks, the universe answers not as a servant, but as a reflection. Tonight, remember this truth. You were never meant to live in reaction. You were designed to create by decree. Every word you speak, every image you hold, every emotion you allow, they are all laws you issue into the fabric of reality. Speak with fear, and you command failure. Speak with faith, and you command destiny. You are not here to survive life. You are here to govern it. That is the law of dominion. And when you finally embrace it, you will no longer ask the universe for power. You will remember that you already are it. Inside every human being, there is a battlefield unseen by the world. A quiet war between what was and what can be, between the voice of fear and the voice of destiny. It is not fought with swords or bullets, but with thoughts. The greatest wars are always invisible, and this one decides everything. Napoleon Hill called it the war between faith and fear. He said, both cannot occupy the mind at the same time. One must drive out the other. Yet most men live their entire lives trapped in that war, never choosing a victor. They drift between confidence and doubt, passion and paralysis, vision and hesitation, and in that indecision, fear finds its final stronghold. But listen carefully. Fear's final stand is always the loudest. Just before transformation, fear screams its loudest lies. Just before the dawn, the night is darkest. When you are closest to breaking through, fear will use every weapon it has: doubt, delay, distraction, self-criticism. It will tell you that you are not ready, not worthy, not capable. And the mind, if left unguarded, will believe it. This is the inner war Hill faced during his darkest years, when his dream was ridiculed, his finances vanished, his faith tested. He learned that fear is cunning. It wears the mask of logic. It tells you it's being realistic. But realism, when used by fear, is just a cage built from the bones of your potential. The masters of destiny do not ignore fear, they confront it with awareness. They walk into the battlefield with calm eyes, saying, "I see you." Because once seen, fear loses its camouflage. It cannot attack from the shadows anymore. Understand this. The inner war is not meant to destroy you. It is designed to forge you. Without resistance, there can be no strength. Without friction, there can be no polish. Every challenge you face is not punishment, it is pressure. Pressure that reveals the diamond hidden beneath your hesitation. You may feel the tension between who you are and who you're becoming. That tension is sacred. It means life is pulling you toward expansion. Do not numb it, avoid it, or run from it. Feel it fully, breathe through it, and rise. Because every moment you refuse to give in, fear dies a little more. Napoleon Hill described fear as a state of mind subject to control and direction. Think about that. Fear is not real, it's an arrangement of thoughts, a pattern, a frequency. When you change the pattern, the feeling follows. That is why he taught that the first step to freedom is awareness. You cannot conquer what you will not face. So, look at your own inner war. Where does fear still whisper? In your finances, your relationships, your purpose? Trace it, don't judge it, listen to what it's protecting. Because underneath every fear is something sacred, something you deeply value. Fear is not always an enemy. Sometimes it's the wounded guardian of your dreams. The trick is not to fight fear, but to retrain it, to turn the guard dog into a guide. When you say, I understand why you're afraid, but I choose to lead, you neutralize its power. You shift from reaction to authority. That's when the battlefield becomes still, not because the war ended, but because you became the general. Hill taught his students that no man is ever defeated until he accepts defeat as a reality. That is the truth of the inner war. You cannot lose unless you surrender. Fear has no power unless you give it belief. The moment you stop feeding it with attention, it starves, and a starving fear is a dying fear. But here's the secret. You don't win this war once. You win it every day. Each morning, fear will test the gates again to see if you're awake, if you still remember your strength. And each morning, you must answer with action. Not words, not intention, action. Because fear cannot follow movement. It thrives only in stillness and speculation. Once you move, it vanishes. You've felt this before that moment when you finally acted despite the doubt and the fear dissolved instantly. It was never real. It was resistance, waiting to be conquered through decision. That is why Hill said, action is the real measure of intelligence, not analysis, not waiting for courage to arrive. Courage is not a feeling, it is a command. It is the voice that says, even if I tremble, I will step forward. Picture this, a man standing before a door that separates him from everything he desires. On the door, the word fear is written in bold. He hesitates, listens to the noise inside his head, and then he touches the handle. The door swings open, and behind it, there's nothing. Just air. Just the next step. That is the truth about fear. It was never the monster it pretended to be. It was only the gatekeeper. Once you open the door, the illusion fades. In this inner war, the greatest weapon you have is faith, not passive faith, but active faith, the kind that moves, speaks, and persists. When fear rises, faith must speak louder. Speak to your mind as Hill spoke to his. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Say it again and again until your subconscious accepts it as fact. Because once faith becomes law within you, the war ends. The battlefield falls silent, the storm subsides, and in that silence you discover something extraordinary: peace. The kind of peace that cannot be shaken because it no longer depends on the world. It comes from knowing that fear has no home left inside you. This is fear's final stand, and you are its conqueror. From this point forward, fear may whisper, but it will never command. It may appear, but it will never reign, because the man who wins the inner war walks not in fear, but in dominion. That is the victory Hill spoke of, the moment the mind becomes your servant, and the soul becomes your guide. There comes a point after every battle, every storm, when the world grows quiet, the noise of resistance fades, the echoes of fear dissolve, and what remains is something far greater than victory stillness. This is not emptiness, it is power at rest. The silence of power is the highest state of mastery when a man no longer needs to prove, persuade, or chase. He simply is. Napoleon Hill wrote, "When you are sure of your plan and your purpose, you do not need to shout your belief to the world. The truly powerful walk softly. Their calm is louder than the noise of the world. Their certainty is silent because it no longer seeks validation. The man who has conquered fear speaks little because he has nothing left to defend." Most people mistake power for noise. They think strength means domination, loudness, control, movement. But true power is the opposite. True power does not need attention. It commands it naturally. It does not seek followers. It magnetizes them. The silence of power is magnetic because it is rooted in inner certainty. You can feel this silence in nature. Watch a mountain unmoved by the storms that pass across its face. Watch the ocean still at its depths, even as waves crash at the surface. That is real power. Stillness beneath motion. Peace beneath noise. Hill understood this. He said that men who master their emotions become as calm as a deep river, for nothing external can disturb them. After the inner war is won, a sacred quiet fills the space that fear once occupied. At first, it may feel strange, like walking through a house that used to be filled with echoes, but soon you will recognize this quiet as your natural state. It is the vibration of dominion, the pulse of divine order. In this silence, the voice of intuition awakens. You begin to hear whispers that were once drowned by fear ideas, insights, gentle directions. This is infinite intelligence speaking. Hill called it the sixth sense, the mind's bridge to higher wisdom, but you can only hear it when the noise of fear is gone. That's why stillness is not weakness, it is signal clarity. Most people live surrounded by noise, not from the world, but from their own thoughts. Endless commentary, self-judgment, what-ifs, memories, comparisons. The mind becomes a crowded marketplace where wisdom has no room to speak. The man of silence, however, has cleared the market. He has learned to listen to the spaces between thoughts. That is where inspiration lives. Hill often spoke of infinite intelligence as a real presence, a force that guides those who are calm enough to receive it. He said that once you master silence, you will never again feel alone, for you will realize that the entire universe is listening with you. The answers you once chased now find you. Opportunities approach unannounced. People appear without explanation. This is the unseen symmetry of divine order, and silence is its language. Powerful silence is not passive, it is poised. It is readiness without rush. It is the archer holding his breath before the arrow flies. It is the calm before creation. When you are silent, you conserve energy, energy that the noisy spend in distraction. Silence builds pressure, and pressure, when directed, creates impact. You will notice something else. When you no longer need to speak your power, your presence speaks for you. People will feel it before you enter the room. They will adjust their tone without knowing why. This is the unseen authority of a mind that has conquered itself. The silence of power bends reality without demand. Napoleon Hill believed that silence was the mark of those in tune with infinite law. Tell the world what you intend to do, he warned, but first, show it. The man of silence speaks through results. His actions echo where words once filled the air. But silence must not become isolation. The goal is not to withdraw from the world, but to engage with it from a higher frequency, one untouched by chaos. When your inner world is quiet, you can finally see the outer world clearly. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer chase meaning, you embody it. The silence of power is also a weapon because in silence, fear cannot find you. Fear lives in noise and mental chatter, in what-ifs, in overthinking. Silence is its starvation. Every moment you return to stillness, you drain fear of its energy. You remind it who commands the battlefield. Try this. Each night before sleep, sit in darkness for a few minutes. No affirmations, no music, no movement, just silence. Let the thoughts come and go without chasing them. Watch them drift. You will notice that even your fears begin to fade when you do not engage. This is not avoidance, it is sovereignty. You are teaching your mind that silence is safety, not danger. In time, that silence will follow you into the day. Meetings, decisions, challenges, all met with the same steady calm. People will wonder how you stay composed when the world shakes. They won't know that you no longer live at the surface. You've moved into the depth where storms cannot reach. Hill said that all great achievements are born from quiet, persistent thought. Not noise, not panic, not rush. The silence of power is fertile. It gives birth to ideas, direction, and purpose. Those who trust it move through life as if guided by an unseen hand. You begin to understand that silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of strength. It is the vibration of a mind in harmony with its purpose. The deeper your silence, the clearer your intuition. The clearer your intuition, the stronger your command. This is the paradox of the powerful. The more they master silence, the louder their influence becomes. So now, As you stand beyond fear's reach, breathe into this quiet. Feel it fill your chest. Let it hum beneath your thoughts like a sacred current. You do not need to fight anymore. You do not need to prove. You have become what you were chasing. The silence of power is your natural state, the home your spirit has been trying to return to all along. When you live in that silence, fear has no language left to speak. And what remains is pure, unshakable peace. Faith is not merely belief. It is vibration, a golden frequency that radiates through the unseen world and bends reality to match its tone. The golden frequency of faith is what Napoleon Hill called the eternal elixir, the invisible current that transforms thoughts into things, dreams into direction, and man into master. Most people misunderstand faith. They think it means waiting and hoping. They treat it like a wish whispered into a dark sky. But faith is not passive. Faith is the most active energy in existence. It is the vibration of creation itself, precise, deliberate, and commanding. When you vibrate in faith, the universe recognizes you as one of its own. Hill wrote, "Faith is the head chemist of the mind." When faith is blended with thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the vibration, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to infinite intelligence. This is not poetry, it is physics. Every thought is a frequency, every belief a signal. Faith amplifies that signal to a divine pitch, and when the mind reaches the golden frequency, the universe must respond because you have entered the language of law. The golden frequency cannot be reached through logic. It is tuned through alignment. You tune into it when your thoughts, emotions, and actions vibrate in harmony. Doubt breaks the signal. Fear scrambles it. But faith, pure, unwavering, definite faith, clears the line completely. Imagine your life as a radio tower. Every emotion you emit becomes a broadcast. Fear sends static into the world, distorted, confused, inconsistent. Faith sends music, pure, coherent, magnetic. And the world, being vibrational by nature, reflects back whatever station you are tuned to. That's why people of faith attract miracles. They are broadcasting at the same frequency as creation itself. You can feel when you've reached it. Everything feels aligned. Time slows down. You begin to notice synchronicities, strange coincidences that feel too precise to be random. A call comes at the right moment. A door opens you didn't clock on. That is the universe's way of saying, stay tuned, you're in harmony. But here's the secret. The golden frequency is not accessed once it must be maintained. Faith is a state, not a sentence. You don't have it, you generate it. You tune your energy daily, just like an instrument. How? Through repetition of thought, purity of emotion, and certainty of word. Every morning, you must calibrate your mind to faith. Every doubt is interference. Catch it early, transmute it, and retune. Hill said, repetition of affirmation leads to belief. Once belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. That is the formula of vibration. Affirmation, belief, conviction, manifestation. Each stage raises your frequency closer to gold. The golden frequency feels warm, light, grounded. It is not manic or forced, it is calm power. When you reach it, you no longer chase, you no longer question, you simply know. That knowing becomes your gravity. Everything you desire begins orbiting toward you not by effort but by resonance. Think of faith as the Sunday. It does not move toward the planets. The planets move around it. So too does life move around the man whose faith burns steady. Hill understood that faith was the only antidote to fear because both operate on the same energy belief. Fear is belief in the negative. Faith is belief in the divine. They use the same fuel. You can't destroy fear, but you can redirect its energy. When you take the intensity of fear and apply it toward belief, it becomes faith. That is how you raise vibration, not by fighting darkness, but by amplifying light. Now imagine this energy as golden light flowing through your body. It begins at your heart, the seat of feeling. With each breath, it expands upward into the mind, cleansing every thought, and downward into the body, empowering every cell. You can feel the vibration grow steady like a tuning fork resonating with the divine. That is faith becoming physical. This golden frequency is what Hill called infinite intelligence working through man. When you operate from this state, you no longer need to force results. You become guided by instinct, pulled by intuition, protected by unseen order. What once felt like effort now feels like flow. But beware, the world will try to pull you off frequency. Fear disguised as logic will whisper that you are unrealistic. People will call you lucky when miracles appear, or delusional when you hold faith through the storm. Smile, because both are compliments. The world cannot understand those who live at the golden frequency. You are no longer playing by visible rules, you are living by invisible law. Napoleon Hill said that faith sees the invisible, believes the incredible, and receives the impossible. The golden frequency is the scientific version of that truth. It is the ultimate state of creation. Every thought you think in that vibration becomes a decree. Every action becomes effortless alignment. Every day becomes an answered prayer. You will know when you are in it, because fear will sound absurd. You will try to recall why you ever doubted, and it will feel foreign. Fear cannot enter the field of faith any more than shadow can stand before the Sunday. At this level, your words gain weight. Your intentions ripple outward. You become the cause, not the effect. The world mirrors your certainty. The people around you start to change not because you convince them, but because your vibration lifts theirs. That is the true gift of the golden frequency. It doesn't just free you, it frees everyone you touch. Faith at this level becomes service. You stop asking what you can get and start radiating what you are. You become the transmitter of light that Hill described when he said, "Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve." To live in this golden frequency is to live as creation itself. No fear, no scarcity, no noise, only flow. And when you reach that place, you will finally understand. Faith was never something you had to build. It was something you had to remember. You were born tuned to gold. You simply forgot the sound. Now, in this silence, with fear destroyed and power restored, you are hearing it again, the frequency of God in motion, the vibration of faith made real. At last, we arrive at the summit, the place where all laws converge. The law of transmutation, the law of conscious command, the law of definite faith, the law of dominion, all of them lead here to the final revelation, the mind that commands reality. Napoleon Hill wrote, "Every man is the sum total of his dominating thoughts." It was not a metaphor, it was a manual. He meant that your life is nothing more or less than the reflection of your mental dominion. Every result, every relationship, every triumph, every delay, all of it began as a command in the mind. You are not at the mercy of life, you are the author of it. The mind that has mastered fear no longer lives by chance, it lives by choice. It no longer reacts to circumstances, it designs them. This is the ultimate evolution when thought becomes law and the thinker becomes creator. Look at your own life. Every change, every turning point, every rise or fall, it all began when you thought differently. Thought is the first movement of creation. You think, then you feel, then you act. And the universe, being obedient by design, arranges itself around that vibration. That is why Hill said, "There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge." The mind that commands reality acknowledges none. Such a mind is calm, not because the world is easy, but because it understands law. It knows that results are not accidents, they are echoes. If you do not like the echo, change the call. If the world mirrors fear, broadcast faith. If it mirrors delay, broadcast decision. If it mirrors scarcity, broadcast abundance. The mind that commands reality never blames the mirror, it changes the face it shows. This is the secret hill guarded within every line of Think and Grow Rich. The outer world is clay and thought is the sculptor. When you command your thoughts, you command creation itself. Not with arrogance, but with awareness. Not through wishful thinking, but through definite, deliberate, disciplined focus. There is no magic in this. There is law. Faith amplifies thought, emotion gives it color, imagination gives it form, action seals it into matter. That is how the universe obeys its masters through the sequence of vibration, vision, manifestation. The world's greatest builders have known this truth for centuries. The pyramids, the skyscrapers, the empires, the revolutions, they were all born as single ideas in single minds that refused to bow to fear. These minds issued commands with such conviction that the universe had no choice but to comply. You hold that same power, you always have. But fear taught you to forget. Fear made you believe you were small, separate, powerless. And yet here you are after every storm, after every trial, still standing, still creating, still breathing. That means you have already been commanding reality all along. The difference now is that you will do it consciously. The mind that commands reality does not ask, "Can I?" It decides, "I will." It does not wait for signs. It becomes the sign. It does not seek permission. It issues decree. This mind no longer reacts to fear, because fear has nothing left to attach to. It recognizes fear as the residue of untrained thought, a noise that can be silenced by focus. When such a mind speaks, reality shifts. When it decides, paths unfold. When it believes, laws obey. But the secret is not to force, it is to align. You do not need to wrestle the universe. You only need to vibrate in harmony with its laws. The moment your thoughts match the frequency of your desire, the two become indistinguishable. The creation and the creator merge. This is why Hill said that a burning desire, backed by faith, knows no such word as impossible. Burning desire is the language of command. It is focused energy, refined by faith, directed by decision. The man who lives this way becomes the embodiment of natural law. When you reach this level of awareness, fear disappears not because you've outrun it, but because you've outgrown it. Fear exists only in separation, the illusion that you are different from life, that things happen to you instead of through you. But when the mind awakens, it sees the truth. You are life itself, expressing through thought. You are the pen in the hand of divine intelligence, writing the story of your world. And so creation becomes effortless. You begin to live in a state of flow. Time bends around your focus. People appear in alignment with your purpose. What you once called coincidence now reveals itself as orchestration. You begin to see that every event, even the painful ones, was guiding you toward this awakening, this realization that you are not the storm, but the sky that holds it. Napoleon Hill's legacy was not about wealth. It was about dominion. He didn't want men to chase riches. He wanted them to discover the mind that creates them. Because once you command your mind, you command everything else. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel your breath. Feel the stillness behind your thoughts. That silence is your true self, the consciousness behind all creation. From that silence, speak a single thought, not a wish, but a decree. From this moment forward, I command my reality. Feel the vibration of those words move through you. That is power. That is the law in motion. Fear bows before that tone. Doubt dissolves under that frequency. The mind becomes the throne, and you the rightful king. Now you understand why the masters of destiny walked with quiet confidence. They had learned the one truth that ends all struggle. That reality is not something you enter, it is something you emanate. And so, your journey ends where it began within. You are not here to beg life for mercy. You are here to remember that you are life itself. The mind that commands reality does not chase the world. It creates one. And in that creation, fear ceases forever. Because once you know who you are, you cannot be afraid of what you made.